What's going on, guys? Welcome to the vlog. Today we're going to be playing a 1-2 game in San Marcos, Texas. Let's get into it. Let's go. We're at our home card room today on the River Social Club in beautiful San Marcos, Texas. In for 500. Right as we take a seat, we look down at ace-3 hearts in the cutoff. Under the gun opens, middle position and I call, and the small blind min 3 bets to 15. Under the gun calls, and we're getting way too good of a price here to fold, even against a guy as tight as this. Flop is ace-6 deuce rainbow, and the small blind leads for 25, and we obviously make the call. Heads up to the turn is a stunning offsuit ace giving us trips. I'm expecting the small blind to slow down here often with most hands besides ace-x, so when he makes it 30, we're going to tread lightly on the river. Praying for a check, the river is a brick 7 and he snap jams. I can really get put in the blender here. We have one of the worst aces possible, and based off of player profile, I think there's no way the guy drinking black coffee with war patches on his jacket is bluffing 3 streets here. We decide to let it go and instantly regret it as we get shown the stone cold bluff of 7 deuce off. Here in San Marcos, they run a 7 deuce promotion to win a Snickers bar after winning with the hand. This guy is an OMC, but I guess you're not you when you're hungry. On to the next hand, it folds to us in middle position, and we look down at an absolute monster. We open to 15 with aces, and the small blind decides to 3-bet us. He makes it 65, and I have a feeling we're getting 3-bet light, so we decide to just make the call to give him some rope to bluff. I'm most often putting in the 4-bet here, so our hand is very disguised. Flop is queen 7-6 rainbow, as dry as it gets. He starts with a check. I think mixing betting and checking here is good, but our stacks are shallow enough to get all the money in by the river, so we check back for deception. Turn is an offsuit 10. He leads for a super small sizing of 20. I think the only hand that he has that beats us here is a set of queens or maybe a set of 10s. The turn does complete 8-9 for a straight, but I think most of the time it's getting c-bet off on the flop. We raise to 85 for value, targeting hands like ace-queen, king-queen, queen-jack, and pocket jacks. He jams! I think our hand is much too under-rep to consider folding here. So we put in the snap call. Small blind says he has ace-king and we run it twice. Brick. We are going to be scooping the $650 pot. 2 limpers to us in the hijack, and we take a heat check and raise it up with queen 9 of spades. And in typical Texas fashion, there's 5 callers with 1 player all in for less. Super multi-way to the flop. It comes a beautiful queen 9-4, 2 hearts and a club. 2 checks to me and we're feeling great. It doesn't get much better than this. Even though in theory we should bet smaller in a multi-way pot, people in Texas are putting in money much wider than they're supposed to. So we size to the tune of 65. The player next to act is all in for 65 and the button also calls. Looking to get all the money in on most cards, the turn is a slightly dicey king of clubs. Even though this card does complete hands like jack 10 and king queen, it also puts out a backdoor flush draw, and we need to find protection from those hands. I think that hands like queen jack and queen 10 will also find a call here, considering they pick up straight draws as well. Looking at the opponent's stack, there's not many sizings that work when you take the size of the pot into consideration. So we settle on a jam for 193 effective. We fade the snap call and are begging him to put in the chips. He hems and haws, eventually saying that he has a draw, and he puts in the rest of his stack. We run it once, looking to dodge any heart, club, or straightening card. The river is a 2-pair shriveling 8 of hearts. My stomach drops as he turns over the king 10 of hearts for the rivered flush. We tap the table. Nice hand. In a bit of pain after the last hand, we try to recoup our stack by opening ace-9 of hearts on the button to 15 over limp. Only the big blind makes the call, and we are off to the races. Flop is 4-3 deuce, 2 hearts, and the big blind checks to us. We should be checking most of our range here on low connected flops, but the big blind is going to have a lot of auto folds with every hand that missed, so instead we make a dubious c-bet for $10. The big blind thinks that $10 is a reasonable price to see a turn, so he tags along. Looking to check back a majority of turns that don't give us a pair, flush, or straight, we get a 9 of clubs. Not necessarily the card we wanted to see, but given we make top pair, we switch to value bet mode after he checks. We make it $35, and this opponent thinks something is fishy and instantly jams on us. Even though it seems like the big blind can only have value here, we do unblock some bluffs like 6-7, 5-7, 6-4, and lower flush draws. We also have around 40% equity against 2-pair holdings. We only need 33% equity to make a profitable call. So we do some math, and we come to the conclusion that he only has to be bluffing a very small percentage of the time to make the equities reach equilibrium. We run it twice, and we know a heart will secure a win on both boards. It comes the 8 of hearts on top, and the king of spades on bottom. Expecting to be getting only half of the pot, we roll over our hand, and he sheepishly turns over the 6 deuce off for a busted gutter on both boards. We had no idea that combo was in his range, so clearly making the call was a profitable decision. Under the gun opens to 15, plus 1 in middle position call, and we look down at a great squeeze candidate in the form of ace-jack of diamonds. We raise it up to 55 and only middle position calls. We tend to put double flatters in a collapsed range consisting mostly of middling pairs, some suited broadways, and connectors. So our range should dominate his on most boards. The flop is 5-6-7 monotone. He checks to us, and this is potentially the worst board that could have come out. Checking back 100% of my range here probably makes the most sense, so we go ahead and do that. Turn is the king of clubs, bringing nothing for our actual hand, but ace king and king queen are very common hands for us to have in the spot. He starts with a check, and while we could currently have the best hand, I want to start running a bluff to fold out the weaker pocket pairs on the river. We size to 40 because our range doesn't have many thick value hands. He calls, and the best bluffing card hits the river. It's an offsuit queen, and after he checks to us, we have the green light to go ahead and make the bet. With another overcard to many of the pocket pairs he could be holding, it should be quite easy to fold out those hands, as well as miss flush draws. We decide to go small because a small sizing is going to get the job done just as well as a big one. Every hand that would call a small bet would also call a big one, so going large would just be burning money. We make it 60, and after thinking for a while, he shrugs and throws it away. Folds to the hero in the low jack, and we're looking to get some revenge with the queen 9 suited. So we raise it up to 15, only the cutoff calls, and the flop comes 7-3-7, 2 hearts. We could go with a bet or check here with a flush draw, but I tend to play more passively out of position and start with the check. The cutoff checks back, and we see a turn. Peels off the 5 of hearts, and we make a super disguised flush. No reason to think he's going to make a bet for us here, so we make it 20. This looks like a big bet into a player that probably doesn't have much, but most players at low stakes tend to think of bet sizes in small pots as an absolute dollar amount instead of a percentage of the pot. He makes the call, and we hope for a clean river. It's the deuce of diamonds, and we need to think about how big we can make it. I feel like he's either going to have a very strong hand or hands that would fold to any bet size. So we size large in hopes that he has hands like a flush, straight, or maybe even a 7 that checked back the flop. We make an overbet sizing of 95 in the hopes that he calls, and he says he can't throw it away. We're happy. He throws in the chip. We roll over the winner. He shows ace 4. What a terrible river for him. Moving on to the next one, there's a $5 straddle under the gun, one limper in front of us, and we raise king queen off from middle position to 25. The cutoff and the button both call. 3 ways to a flop. It comes queen 8 deuce, 2 spades. We're first to act, and on a decently draw-heavy board, we need to bet for protection and value. We make it 25, and only the cutoff makes the call. Turn is the 10 of diamonds, which brings in some hands like Jack 9 of spades, Jack 9 of clubs, as well as Queen 10 or maybe 10 8 of clubs. We decide to check for pot control, because there's a lot of really bad river cards that allow him to put a lot of pressure on us, considering he's in position. He bets 75, and obviously we're going to do nothing but make the call here. We really don't know what cards we potentially have to dodge, so just looking for something like an offsuit deuce. It comes the 6 of spades, and while not the absolute worst card in the deck, every flush draw gets there, and 7-9 of clubs. There's no hands we can still get value from, so checking is definitely in our best interest. He makes it 125, and while we're getting a decent price here, I would have to really search for bluffs to make a call. Pretty easy decision to let it go, and he lets us know we made the right fold and says he has Jack 10 of spades. We arrive at the last hand of the night, and it is going to get exciting. With the straddle on, we're in the big blind, and it folds all the way to us. We have ace 8 off, and this hand is really an auto raise versus the straddle, but we just limp instead. The straddle checks his option, and we're going to a flop heads up. It comes 8-6-3, 2 spades, and we bet 5 for value. The big blind can't help but make the call. The turn is a killer ace of hearts, giving us top 2 pair. This gives us a monster hand, but this is a scare card he can find some bluffs on when I check. He complies with a bet of 20, and we can't let flush draws see the river for that amount, so we go ahead and raise it up for protection and value to 85. When he calls, I skew him more towards value hands like ace-x and some combo draws. Keeping this in mind, when the river comes the king of hearts, this is a huge brick, as neither of us will have ace-king with no raise pre. We elect to size very large, polarizing us to a bluff or the nuts. Every draw bricked out, so he should get curious with many value hands. We choose a size of 210, but I think we should probably go even larger, putting in the rest of the effective stack for about 290. He goes in the tank, and seeing all the missed draws, he makes the call. We proudly turn over our top 2 pair and take down a huge pot to end the night. What's up, guys? Welcome to the end of the first vlog. Today we were in for 500, out for 1120 for a profit of $620. There will be a lot more content coming, so make sure to like, subscribe, and keep notifications on. Thanks, and see you guys in the next one.